What I want to talk about tonight, what this event is about saving the country. And I have had the privilege to work in Number 10 and work on the country's AI strategy. But what I really want to draw on tonight is actually the last 14 years I've spent helping people build and scale technology companies in the UK. And the last 3 years that I've spent as chair of the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, trying to find the breakthroughs that will build the industries of the future. I'm really excited to be here tonight because I think it is easy when you're not in a crowd like this to lose faith. It's easy to open BBC News, read the first 3 headlines, and they're all about our failure. And it's easy to lose faith. But I have, even just talking to some of you tonight and being in this crowd, I think it's not only possible, but it feels that if we can harness the energy of this crowd and this movement, then it's actually inevitable. We can do extraordinary things, and actually already extraordinary things are happening. I do want to say, it is amazing what Lawrence and the team have done with LFG in a remarkably short period of time, and really very little money. It's amazing. It's really amazing. So one thing I've learned through entrepreneurship is that when you're staring into the abyss, and sadly that's a feeling you have a lot as a founder, when you're staring at a really hard problem, the most important thing you can do is to be really, really clear about exactly what problem you're trying to solve and what it would look like to succeed. And I've thought hard about how we would frame that in a sentence. And I think it is as simple as our goal should be to make the UK rich again. And that's not, these days, a very British thing to say, and that is part of the problem. But our goal should be to make the UK rich again. Almost all our other problems are downstream of stagnation. We've had no growth for 17 years in this country. I was trying to work out when I was thinking about giving this talk, how bad is it? Just how bad is it? And if you look at how rich would we be today if we carried on growing the last 17 years at the rate that we were in the decade before the financial crisis, the answer is that losing that potential is equivalent to £16,000 per person, not per household, per person per year. If we had stayed on that trend and lost it all overnight to back where we are today, it would be a loss of economic output of close to 30%. It's the biggest economic disaster in the history of our country. But because it's been a slow motion disaster, it's been far too easy for us, and I would say especially for our political class, to ignore. Now, I know that wealth is a means, it's not an end, but it is the means that fuels all our ends. And I would argue that whatever you care about, whatever your vision for this country, it will be much easier to achieve it if we make the UK rich again. If what you really want is a fairer society, well, you need people to feel like they're playing a positive-sum game. You need people to feel like they're not scrapping over a shrinking pie. That's when people's instincts to look after each other kick in. If what you really want is a safer society, then you need people to see paths from poverty into prosperity. You need to be able to afford to pay for well-lit spaces, for great public spaces. You need to be able to pay for more prisons, for more police, for more probation. If you want a healthier society, you need to pay for it. We need to pay for preventative healthcare. We need to pay for cutting-edge treatments. We need to pay for high-quality environments and homes that make us healthy. I think even if what you really want is a more beautiful society, then we need to be rich to pay for it. I'm from Bradford. I don't know how many of you have been to Bradford, but excellent. I'm actually going tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And unfortunately today, Bradford is not such a beautiful city. But I remember growing up, walking often through the city centre, surrounded by ugly concrete monstrosities, And there in the middle of it is this absolutely stunning city hall. Absolutely stunning. It's a triumph of Gothic architecture. Why does Bradford, in the middle of what some people would describe as a not very nice hole, how does it have such a beautiful city hall? Well, at the time that we built that building, Bradford was the richest city in the world, more or less. It's the same reason why we built the most beautiful train stations in the world. I commute into London through Marylebone and often commute out through St. Pancras. These are some of the most beautiful buildings in our country, and we built them when Britain was the richest country in the world. Wealth as a nation gives us choices. I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, and I often think about that it's really easy to be dismissive of the difference between some growth and no growth. But actually, the difference, if I think about my little boy Jasper, who's 5, the difference for his generation, by the time he's my age, between 1% a year growth and 3% a year growth, is a 3-fold increase in GDP. We'll be 3 times richer by the time Jasper is 40 if we go at 3% than 1%. We have to make the UK rich again. Now, when I think about this and when I talk about this with people, they say, well, yeah, that's great, but is it possible? I find this bizarre. Of course it's possible. We know it's possible. We have an existence proof. We did it before. The UK was the richest country in the world. And the thing I want to claim, the thing I want to insist on is that that wasn't an accident. It's the result of British exceptionalism. Another thing that I think is unfashionable to say these days. But I think if you look at the history of our institutions, history of our inventions, the role that this country played in the Industrial Revolution, it's really clear that this country has had an exceptional history. This is the country where the laws of gravity were discovered, where natural selection and the electron, the neutron were discovered. It's the country where the structure of DNA was first uncovered, where vaccination was invented. Here we discovered penicillin. We pioneered antiseptic surgery. We invented the modern clinical trial. This is where computer science was born. It's the country of Babbage and Lovelace, of Turing. It's where the steam locomotive was pioneered and industrialized. It's the birthplace of the railway age. It's where the steam turbine and the jet engine were invented. It's the birthplace of modern sanitation, of the postal service. In this country, we birthed common law. We birthed constitutional rights, parliamentary democracy, the stock exchange, joint stock companies, the police, national health services. We invented football, we invented rugby, we invented golf, we invented cricket. It's the country of Shakespeare. It's the country of Eliot and Tolkien. Britain created the modern world. Britain created the modern world. This country gave us so much of what not only we, but what the world values today. So why does it feel so hard? Why, when I run through that list, does it feel like we're not going to do it again? Well, it's really because I think stagnation is a choice, and unfortunately, it's a choice that we've made continually now for nearly 20 years. It feels hard because we've chosen to create layer upon layer of cultural, legal, and institutional cruft on top of our capacity to invent, to innovate, and to grow. Lawrence likes to say you can just do stuff. And that is true of LFG, and it's very impressive. But I think we have to stare into the abyss and say, actually, far too often today, this is a country where you cannot just do things. You cannot just build. You cannot just grow. And as I learned in number 10, you cannot just govern. The lesson from history, from that history of British exceptionalism, is that actually the mother of greatness is permissionlessness. You shouldn't need a license to do all these things. We need to build a country where you can just do stuff. But we have gone in the opposite direction, and we have to recognize that. We've broken our relationship with our history. We've broken our relationship with risk. We've broken our relationship with success. On our history, we've come to see all our past achievements as tainted, as the result of mere oppression and extraction. Now, of course, there was some of that, but that's not where that long list of accomplishments of this country came from. On risk, we've come to see all negative outcomes of any sort as the result of insufficient control from the center, from top down. And so whenever we see anything we don't like, any outcome, however unusual, however much in the tails, we've developed an impulse to ban it, or to suppress it, or to delay it. And on success, we've come to see all success as suspicious, as the result of a rigged game. Now, I get it. Actually, too often, the game is rigged. And actually, that is one of the biggest problems with a stagnant society, a stagnant economy, that it actually is better too often in a stagnant economy to be an incumbent, to be shielded from competition. It's much better in those circumstances to be an incumbent than to be an innovator. But it doesn't have to be that way. We should aspire to live in a country where the way to get rich is to create new things, to take big risks, to figure out how to make products and services that people love. But we're not going to get there if we don't learn to love success, if we don't learn to celebrate our entrepreneurs, our inventors, and our builders. And so when I ask myself, what would it take to make the UK rich again, to do that trebling of GDP over the next couple of decades? That's the theme that stands out for me. We have to back our builders. We have to back our builders of great companies. We have to back our builders of physical infrastructure. We have to back our builders of state capacity. And I know it's possible. I know it's possible because I've seen it. I've seen it at Entrepreneurs First, the company that I built with my co-founder Alice. We've backed hundreds of British founders who've built companies worth over 10 billion, created over 8,000 jobs. But the truth is, sadly, thank you, today, too many of them choose to move to the US. Why do they do that? Well, partly it's because they think they can raise capital there, and they're often right. But I think we also have to admit that too often it's because they think that that's where their ambition will be welcomed and not dismissed. We can fix that, but it's a matter of will. I've seen it at ARIA, where we're funding, I think, the trillion-pound industries of the future, from programmable plants to precision neurotech. The talent and the ambition is there. It's definitely there. The question is, can we match it with investment and with procurement? And of course, again, the answer is yes. But again, it's a matter of will. I've seen it with the AI Security Institute, which was just mentioned, where the team, some of whom are in the room tonight, went from zero to the strongest AI state capacity in the world in a year by being willing to do government differently, and yes, to break some of the rules. You can do that. You can do government differently, but it's a matter of will. I saw this when I wrote the AI Opportunities Action Plan. We had the biggest AI funders in the world lining up to invest tens of billions into our infrastructure. If only we could sort out our energy mess. Can we? Well, of course we could. Again, it's a matter of will. It's all fixable. It's fixable because Britain's a great country that's savable and worth saving. And the reason I know it's savable is that through these experiences, I do feel I've seen the best of Britain. I feel I've seen its talent and its genius and its drive to make this an amazing country. And I really want to emphasize that this is not all about elites. I've been very fortunate to work with the founders of billion-pound companies and some of our best scientists and technologists. But it's not just about them. I've also seen that drive to make Britain great in some of the teachers at my state school in Bradford, in my mom, who is a teaching assistant in a primary school, in my dad, who's a social worker his whole life. And I do see it in the people I've met through LFG. I think in this room, most of you will not know the other people, but I bet if you did, you would find the will in this group to make Britain rich again. We can do it. We just need to back our builders. So let's fucking go. Thank you.